This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we started ODATA. Let's create ODATA services now with the mapping technique. So we understood SCGW is the only transaction code, and we discussed the project and the different folders in this ODATA project. Now the requirement is, now we are starting ODATA services with mapping. So we understood ODATA services can be mapped with RFC, PAPI, CDS view, business objects, and dictionary views and such helps and all. Now my requirement is, there is an UI5 area app where we need to display countries and country descriptions in a drop down or a table UI element, wherever it may be a table UI element or it may be a drop down or anything else. So we have an RFC function module. So it's a function module with remote enabled. And this RFC is giving the list of countries and descriptions which we want to display the same in table UI element in UI5 theory or in a drop down. If you observe this here in the tables parameter, this is the, it doesn't matter whether it is a table or structure here, but this is used to display the data. So we discussed the entity type, entity set. Entity type is like a structure, entity is work area, entity set is like internal table. So if you want to display the data in UI5 theory app, definitely there should be an entity type, entity set, which is created with reference to this dictionary structure. But usually it is recommended to have structures here, but okay, it is a table, we can also create our entity type based on this table as well. So we are going to use this RFC function module to display countries and country descriptions. The same OData service is leveraged in UI5 theory app to display the same country description in a table UI element or a drop down. Now this is the RFC function module we are going to use, and this is the dictionary structure we are going to leverage to create entity type, entity set. Transport it, give it the package, otherwise low. As soon as we created the project, the folders are defaultly created. And if you look at these folders in the data model, we have the inside folders, but nothing is inside. Service implementation is an empty folder, runtime artifacts is an empty folder, service maintenance is there, but nothing is there because everything is grayed out, and here also grayed out. Now we need to create entity type, entity set, select the data model, right click, import DDIC structure. We create entity type, entity set by selecting the data model, right click, import DDIC structure. Once we select data model, right click, import DDIC structure, We give here entity type or complex type, and we are giving the name as country. We are giving the name as country. This is entity type or complex type entity type, and we are giving the dictionary structure as a reference. See here, whatever we wanted to give, we are giving this as a dictionary structure. You can see the checkbox here. By default, entity set also will be created. What? Let me show you again. What we did, we selected the data model folder, right click, import DDIC structure. We are giving here our entity type name, and we are creating it because we create entity type, entity set. Entity type always with reference to the dictionary structure. And by default, this create default entity set checkbox is checked. If we click next, now you can look here. This is these are the fields. If you want all, you can select by checking this checkbox, or else you can select the required fields. So I'm selecting all as of now. Right click next. We cannot create entity type without choosing at least one field as the key field. We will discuss in the coming classes, mostly tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We will discuss the significance of this key field. If you don't choose the key field, we cannot go ahead. At least one field should be chosen as key field. We will discuss the significance of this key field either tomorrow or day after tomorrow. As of now, understand at least one field should be selected as a key, and if you click finish. Now look at this folder. This is the entity type, and these are the fields. And this is the entity set. This is the entity set created. Now we, as of now, till now we created entity type and entity set. As soon as entity type, entity set are created, you can see in the service implementation, you can find the entity set and corresponding CRUD methods. If you go to entity type, double click, you can see here like this name and the reference dictionary structure. But if you go to the properties, each and every property, you can see here EDM type means entity data model types. Entity data types, these are all NetWeaver gateway related data types. Actually speaking, SPRAS, we have given dictionary data type char, but it converted to ODATA data types. These are all the ODATA data types, but you don't need to worry about this. It automatically converts the relevant data types. You can also see entity set is created like table type image, and here you can see the entity type name. You can't see entity here, but entity is inside entity set, like your internal table with the header, without header line, or with the header line. Here runtime artifacts is empty at the moment. We need to generate runtime artifacts, but to get the runtime artifacts, we need to understand two things: OData service with mapping and without mapping. Both have same steps except one step. In with mapping, we create entity type, entity set. In with mapping, we create entity type, entity set. Then we map the data source, and then we generate the runtime artifacts. These are the three steps. In with mapping, we create entity type, entity set as a first step, which we have already done. And the second step is we map the data source to the relevant method, CRUD method. Third step is we generate the runtime artifacts. Even we follow the same steps in OData service without mapping, but there we create entity type, entity set like this. We generate runtime artifacts, then we implement the relevant CRUD method there. But anyway, we will discuss tomorrow on that. But right now, remember the steps. We create entity type, entity set. Once we created, you can see the corresponding CRUD methods related to the entity set. Now we need to map our data source. So according to our requirement, we are going to display multiple records. So anyone can tell me which is the relevant CRUD method for us among these?
Query of
Yes.
get entity set.
Exactly, get entity set. So we want to display the data here. So in CRUD it is R. R means it is either get entity or get entity set. But you know, get entity means it displays one record. Get entity set means it displays multiple records. So get entity set, right click map to data source. And here we have these options. So I'm selecting remote function call. And now let us take our RFC and give it here. And if you press enter, you can see the left side, these are all entity set fields. Entity set is used to display the data in UiPath Theory app because here our data should be here. The right side, this is RFC or BAPI. This is the output table or output structure where the data is there. So we need to map this output structure to this entity set. So here mapping can be done. You can map one by one like this. That is one thing. Or else, let me show you, if you do some mistake, let's say if you have done some mistake or if you want to do something wrong, you have done something wrong, you want to revert back. Then you just right click this mapping and delete. Everything will be deleted. Now you can again right click map to data source and give your remote function call and give your RFC name. So we understood one thing is we can map one by one like this, or else if you do propose mapping, it automatically map. So from this RFC or BAPI, from this export or tables, so country is the parameter export or tables. Inside country, this pass field is, you can see the arrow here. This data is moving into this entity set field, entity set field, entity set field. So we completed two steps till now. First step is created entity type, entity set. Second step is we mapped the data source. Third step, we need to generate the runtime artifacts. As of now, you can see the runtime artifacts is empty. Artifacts means objects. Runtime objects are folder is empty. So once we select the project and we click this generate runtime objects or generate runtime artifacts, see automatically these objects, these artifacts are being created. You can see the prefix ZCL means it's a class and we have the project name in the middle, and model provider class as an suffix and model provider class extension, data provider class extension. This is the model name, this is the service name. Once you press enter, now you can observe those in the runtime artifacts folder. Now you can see in the runtime artifacts, you are able to see all these things now. Actually speaking, we need to go in without mapping. You go to data provider class extension and you need to implement the relevant CRUD method. But It is not, it is with mapping, so you no need to implement that. So in with mapping you already have the code placed in relevant method. For example, if I click update entity, you don't have anything here because we have not done anything here. You can find the same in other methods except get entity set, because in get entity set method some source code is generated. You can see that here this is the RFC function module and call function RFC, and you can see the data. Okay, anyway, till now we completed 3 steps: created entity type, entity set, and mapped the relevant data source, and generated the runtime artifacts. Now we need to register the service and test the service. So in service maintenance, you see the registration status is grayed or disabled. So you just click this register. Yes. So here, let me show you again. If you click register, in the system alias, you can select local. I will tell you tomorrow on this. Now, because it is an embedded system, so you select local. If it is a hub, we need to select the relevant system alias. That I will discuss tomorrow. So once you register the service, see your technical service name is defaulted. This is the service which generated when we did runtime artifacts. This is the model. These are required for the service. As of now, local object and enter. Now we register the service. You can see the status now. Now we can test this in the NetWeaver gateway client by selecting this gateway client. Here it is our get entity set. So get should be selected either for get entity or get entity set. But when get entity will be triggered, when get entity set will be triggered, anyway that will be discussed tomorrow. As of now, to test your service, it's a get entity set because it's displaying multiple data, and we implemented get entity set with mapping. Select get, and here you need to select the entity set. So by clicking this, you can select your entity set. So this is our entity set. So this is our URL. And if I execute, by default data will be displayed in XML format. It also has capable of JSON format. You can see now these are the XML tags. You see the data now here. If you want JSON format, you can go add URI option and give JSON. Execute. See, this is the JSON format. This is the JSON format. So anyway, we will discuss this. I will explain more things on with mapping. You will get clarity. But at the moment, did you understand whatever we discussed so far? Are you comfortable in these 4 steps? In with mapping especially? Any questions? Any question? Someone speaking?
No, Venkat, it's clear.
Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, now what I will do, I create a new project till you get some comfortness. After that, in the same project, we can create multiple entity sets and multiple services as well. Now we displayed the data without giving any input. what we will discuss now, we give some input, and based on input, we also display data. This is a BAPI flight get list. This gives all the flight details. If I execute, it will give all the flight details like this. You can see here all the flight details. If I don't give any input, it is giving 394 entries. Even I can give also input like this one. See, based on input, we are able to see data now. So this is the input airline and output is flight list. So you can look the import export parameters here. This is the input and the flight list. This is the output. This is the this table's parameter is giving us data, and this structure is being used to represent this data. So obviously when we create entity type, so we need to use the same structure. So our requirement is in UI5 Theory app is they give input as airline. They will give it this input, or whether they give or whether they don't give. We need to display the data based on input with all these fields. So we are going to use this structure during entity type creation. So we are going back to SEGWT code and we are creating a project at the moment. We no need to create a project for each and every OData service or entity type. We can use the same project, but we will see that tomorrow. So we created a project. As soon as the project created, you can look at data model is created with these folders. It's empty, service implementation, runtime artifacts is empty, service maintenance. Now select the data model, right click, import DDIC structure. I am creating, this is the entity type name. Here we are giving, this is the ABAP structure while creating this entity type. And also we are creating entity set here. If I click next, and I'm selecting all the fields at the moment, and at least one field is, at least one key field should be selected. We are selecting this field as a key. Finish. Now we created entity type, and these are the fields, an entity set, and in the service implementation, these are the methods. Now runtime artifacts is empty at the moment. You can see service implementation methods are created. Now also we are going to display multiple data. So this is the relevant method. In case if you want to display the single record, you can do this. If you want to create, you can map, delete, you can map, update, you can map. And at the same time, you can map all methods as well. So right click, map to data source, RFC function module, and BAPI flight get list. For example, if you do propose mapping, you are able to see this is the entity type or entity set which has all the fields which should have data to display the same in UI5 area. The data is coming to this entity set through this BAPI, through this flight list output parameter or export parameter or tables parameter. But if you look at our RFC, we also have this airline is the input field. We also have an input field airline. You can look here. Airline is the input field. Now, but here if you look at any questions? Okay.
How do you identify whether that is a input parameter or some other field is a input parameter? How do you identify? Right hand side, airline.
If you see here, you can go to your BAP and you can check, right, input and output here.
Okay, okay, okay. We have
Here
to
you
check
can
in
check.
back.
Here this is the airline. No, that is one thing, airline, and here this is the flight list. Same way here also. Here you can see, right, airline. This is the input. This is the output.
Okay, okay. Got it. Got it.
Once you map, you can also see here if arrow is like this means your BAPI or RFC is giving data to this. In case if you want to give from UI5 query means from entity set, the arrow will be reversed. But here airline ID is already used to display data in output, but we need also the same in input. So what to do for that? For that, you just put the cursor here and just do insert row. Now here from this F4, you select this airline ID. Now you just map it to here. See, now you can see the arrow here. It means this airline ID is giving to this BAPI. Whatever BAPI or RFC is giving here, that is displaying in this entity set. Let me show you again. I am right click and deleting. Select the get entity set, right click, map to data source and choose the relevant option here and give our BAPI. So we want to display all this data returning from RFC or BAPI. So do propose mapping. Now flight list is giving data. Flight list is giving data to this RFC tables parameter. Now use this insert row button and choose our airline ID here and here map. Now this airline ID is giving to RFC or BAPI and this BAPI is giving to this. Now let's generate the runtime artifacts. So as usual, you can see in the data provider class extension, in the relevant method, you can see the code. Now let us go to service maintenance, register the service, save in local object, select gateway client, and of course get radio button is selected and select the entity set and give this. Now if we execute, because we have not given any input, we are able to see all the data at the moment. See, we are able to show all the data. Let's say if I want to give input, because here you are able to see all airlines data. Let's see if I give some input. Don't worry how I am giving input at the moment, because from tomorrow you will come to know everything. Don't worry about, but one thing you need to understand, this ODATA service is case sensitive. Okay, anyway, I will explain all these things tomorrow, but at the moment you just understand To give input, you need to give, this is the fixed because it's a filter we call, and this is the field name, and this is the value I'm giving. Like I'm giving UA. See, now you are able to see all the data equal to UA. If I give LH Lufthansa, you can see Lufthansa. See, so tomorrow you will come to know about all these signatures. Okay, as of now, just we are discussing with mapping, and we understood till now how to map RFC or BAPI. Any questions till now?
It's clear, Venkat.
Okay. Yes,
Venkat,
someone is asking. Yeah.
get, get entity set. There is a two airlines you using, no? So, why using that another one airline?
Yeah, because this is to display the data in the output. See, here you see the arrow, right? So you see this arrow is mapped from flight list. Here this is the flight list, correct? Flight list is the tables parameter which displays the data. So we mapped this airline ID which is in flight list to this airline ID. This is the output which displays in the output. But we want also input, right? Because we need to display data by giving airline ID as an input. That's the reason we explicitly inserted this, and we mapped the same thing to this input parameter. That's why your arrow is here. Means you are giving input from entity set to the BAPI or RFC. The entity set means from UI5 theory. Once you give UI5 theory, then UI5 theory will give it to your entity set, then it will give it to your RFC, then RFC will give the data, and same data you are giving back to your entity set. If you want, you can look here.
Value.
For example, in this moment, I am not giving any input. I am just executing. You can see now in the output, this airline ID is there, right? This is to display in the output. If you want to give input here, then you need another airline ID. So for this, we inserted explicitly in the map. This is for input. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone is asking related to CDS view, what is HANA CDS and ABAP CDS? Okay. You can look at the document CDS underscore new. The details were described in details. Whatever we did, those are all ABAP CDS. Okay. HANA CDS means they directly create on database. Okay. The CDS views are created directly on database. So usually as an ABAPer, you don't use that. In case if they want to create some UI5 theory apps in Access Engine, in SAP Cloud Platform and all, then these are used. Okay. You can look at the document. So whatever we did, they are all ABAP CDS views. Okay. In ABAP layer we create, they are ABAP CDS views. In ABAP perspective we create. If they create directly on the database, then they are HANA CDS. Like directly tables and all, HANA database tables. Okay. Okay. So two more things are required. So in tomorrow, I think I stop for today, but our time is same 7 to 8. Today it was delayed. Tomorrow in the first half, I will complete with mapping and I will start without mapping. Okay. And Saturday also we have the class in the same time. And mostly Saturday, 90% we may complete OData and the rest will be completed on Monday along with theory launchpad. So by Monday we will come we will able to complete even theory launchpad along with OData, and 21st and all we see the UI5 period development. Okay, so I want to spend this time for your questions and all. So let me know if you have any questions, guys. Is it clear? Any questions?
Can we consume CDSV also in this OData?
Yeah, yeah. I will explain tomorrow on this. We can do that.
Okay.
We can consume CDS use. Yes, tomorrow I will
Is
explain that.
the front-
Sorry, any question?
And the UI5 is the front end. It's a OData is a back end service. It's a
Yes. I
system.
will also explain how to consume this in front end side. Okay, that I will explain when I explain UI5 period. Right now
Now,
we are right
now
now
is
we are
you
yeah. Go ahead, please.
now is you how to create the structure in the OData procedure. Now is you explain this one. Yes.
Yeah, now I am explaining entire backend as a OData consultant. What is your job? What is your role? That we are discussing now. Okay, as a front end developer, what they will do and how to integrate this OData service, that I will explain next week, from Monday.
Okay.
Okay. Usually, depending upon the organization, there are two roles. One is OData consultant, another one is front end consultant. Very rarely find consultant knows both, but it's very rare because usually person who is expert in front end they are weak in back end, who is expert in back end they are weak in front end. But anyway, you don't worry on that. We will see that. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. We will meet tomorrow. Still, if you have any questions, you can ask me. I remain online for a couple of minutes.
In the CDS views, can we provide the input parameter directly without doing any, without using UI elements in the UI section?
Are you talking about CDS views or you are integrating the OData? Are you talking about OData integration?
No, directly CDS views while we are giving the parameters like select options or parameters.
Okay.
Can we provide the parameters like means input? We have the UI elements right in such as input, select options like that. So can we directly use the CDS views and provide there itself?
You mean in UI5? Do you mean in UI5?
No, in CDS itself.
Yeah, we discussed, right? We have input parameters. Parameters we discussed in a template in CDS.
Yeah.
Hope you missed
Actually,
yesterday
yesterday I did
class.
not end. Yes.
Yeah, you just go through yesterday class and even day before yesterday also. So
Sure.
there we
Thank you.
discussed on this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, bye.